Hello friends, welcome to this live stream, and in this live stream we will be discussing about the happening in the nearby space-time and what is affecting us. And today, as you might have noticed, the topic of discussion is how to survive on the surface of planet Mars. And before I start the live stream, I have a viewer who is joining us from Iran. His name is Dr. Mahmoud Jaramain, and welcome to the show, Doctor. And he is appreciating our effort, and he says that he enjoys our live stream. So thank you, Dr. Mahmoud. Really appreciate your participation. All right, so let's move on to our discussion and understanding how we can survive from the biggest threat on the surface of Mars, and that is about the radiation. Well, radiation is the biggest thing in the entire universe because, believe it or not, Sun is the biggest source of radiation. Sun emits a lot of different good things like visible light, because of which we survive. Our plants basically generate energy, which we actually use. So I think sun not only generates the visible light, also generate heat, and in addition to that, there is a lot of radiation which is constantly being generated and bombarded outwards, 24/7 all the time, and all the planets in the solar system bathe in this radiation. And Mars is no exception. However, humans have decided that they want to settle on Mars. As per the estimate or the target that has been set is by 2050, there will be 1 million humans living on the surface of the Mars. But then how do you protect yourself from this deadly radiation? That is a big question, and that is why we are having this discussion today. So as you can see that we are live and we are receiving your messages. So if you have any comments, any suggestion, you can send us the question, which will be displayed on the screen, and I will indulge with your question and answer that. All right, so what is this radiation? I think there are two sources of radiation. One is the sun, as I explained already. The second one is something called cosmic rays. Now these are the radiation which is coming from outside the solar system, and again, this is a constant source of radiation which keeps pouring down on every planet, every object in the solar system, every object in the space itself. I mean, cosmic rays are the omnipresent, and we see lightning in our atmosphere. Some of this lightning is actually created by very high energetic particle from the cosmic rays when they come inside the Earth atmosphere, and they trigger their lightning bolt, which we see as a huge lightning bolt. So only one particle of cosmic ray can generate the entire big lightning bolt on the surface of the Earth. So again, cosmic rays and other radiation are very harmful, and they are sort of omnipresent, and when we leave Earth, we are immediately exposed to this radiation. And that is why this is one of the chronic problems when we want to settle on Mars and also take a journey to the Mars. So on the way, we need to protect ourselves from this deadly radiation, and then we have to constantly protect ourselves when we are on the surface of the Mars. But then how does this radiation is harmful? And this is what this is what we have to understand in detail. Well, cosmic rays and this radiation, high energetic particle, are basically very, very high energy particles of either the small atoms or even things like electrons and even neutrinos, which are very, very high energetic, and they are accelerated to near light speed, and they are usually charged. So when they actually come and hit your body, your body is obviously made of atoms because they are made of molecules, and then eventually they are made of atoms. And these ray particles, the radiation particles, basically interact with the atoms. So when they interact with the atom, they will break it down. they will break down the atom. There will be some sort of a reaction with the atom itself, so which will change its orientation, which will change its property, etc., because of this radiation. And once that happens, then there is a chance of even breaking of the molecule structure. And the biggest threat to life is that if the molecule of DNA is broken, it will basically create a havoc for the living organism, because the DNA itself is now broken. And that is why radiation has the ability to kill a living organism, whether you are a human being or a plant or an insect. Radiation is having a very high potential of removing life out of that living organism. That is why we have to worry about it. And that is why it's like a bullet which comes and kills you. And when we go to space, we have to shield ourselves, we have to shield our body so that we don't get this radiation. But then you will ask, how we are protected on planet Earth? Well, on planet Earth, as I said, that these particles of radiations are actually charged, and since charge interact with magnetism, and fortunately enough, Earth's core generates a huge magnetism. And because of this huge magnetism which is found on the surface of the Earth, these deadly particles are deflected and does not reach the surface where most of the life exists on Earth, including human beings. So that is why on Earth we survive, we flourish, we actually go through the evolution process, and multiple species are created, and over a period of time diversification happen. All kinds of things happens on Earth because the Earth provide a protected shell, a cocoon in which the life can thrive and evolve. And it's all because of the magnetism, as I'm showing you in this picture which is behind me. And when we look at Mars as a habitable area, I mean, of course, Mars provide a surface where we can set up our buildings and start doing mining, maybe open a school, maybe do some other activity. There are a lot of opportunities on the surface of Mars. Unfortunately, the Mars has no magnetism. What we have seen is that these are the patches, that small patches that you see are the small magnetic areas that are still found on Mars. But the magnetism which used to exist on the surface of Mars has died down, because the planet is much smaller than Earth, and it cooled very rapidly. And because it cooled rapidly, it has the core is no longer hot. And what you basically need is a molten core. Just like we have on Earth, there is a molten core and solid core in the middle. And when they rotate, or some interaction happened between liquid and solid, the magnetism is produced, because the core is made of iron and nickel iron compound. And you know that when the metals are rubbed, the magnetism is produced. And that is the reason that we have a very high amount of magnetism which is generated by the core of the Earth, and that eventually protect us. Unfortunately, on Mars, the core is solidified, it is cooled down, and there is no such activity happening inside Mars. Therefore, the magnetism is missing, and that is why 24/7, every day without any break, the Mars surface is washed down in all kinds of radiation, from sun, from cosmic rays, and because of that, the molecules of simple even water molecules are breaking apart into hydrogen and oxygen. Eventually, hydrogen and oxygen escape into the open space, and that is why we don't see the water. So whatever water Mars had is now long gone or is frozen. But even if the water is frozen, these cosmic rays are dividing the water molecule into its original constituents, which is hydrogen and oxygen. And that is what is the process going on for maybe billions of years on the surface of Mars. It is losing the material because of this radiation which is hitting, and especially the water. And therefore, if we try and land on Mars and try to set up a colony, there will be no exception. I mean, we will also go through the similar experience. So when we land on the surface of the Mars, we need to build enough shielding. We need to build enough protection. We need to have some sort of a Martian suit which will protect us when we, step out of our habitat and go into the open, so that we are not hit by any radiation. Therefore, what scientists have found that when they actually send their spacecraft into the space, they purposely construct the outer shell, and they fill it with water and hydrogen compounds. The outer shell of the spacecraft and of the current spacecraft has the water, because what we have found is that the hydrogen compounds have the best ability to stop radiation. So you actually make a shell, and anyway astronauts require water to survive, oxygen to breathe, etc. So there is a mechanism in the spacecraft which recycles water and also recycles oxygen. So all of that is stored in the exterior of the or the exterior walls of the spacecraft. So it serves two purposes. It obviously has a better storage there. It is not interfering in the living quarter inside of the spacecraft. So the wall can be used as a storage mechanism for these essential items. At the same time, the water in the outer shell of the spacecraft protect the astronauts from the deadly radiation coming from the sun and also from the cosmic rays. So this is the best mechanism that we have found, and in nutshell, this is not very expensive. The material itself is not expensive, but putting that in the spacecraft and sending it across is very expensive. So the material, the fuel, the water, the oxygen is not expensive, but the whole project becomes very expensive. Therefore, carrying this material to the Mars is going to be extraordinarily expensive. Therefore, I think the use of the current technology is completely ruled out when we look at setting up our base on the surface of Mars, or even for that matter Moon. So what the scientists have found is that the material or the soil, or as we call it, the Martian regolith, it is a combination of a lot of metals. It's very rich in iron, and it's also rich in titanium. So and it has a lot of other minerals. So the next best thing to protect us from the deadly radiation is the Martian regolith. And that is why instead of carrying the shield from Earth to the Mars, because I think we would need a lot of it, and that is not a viable solution. So we need to be able to use the Martian regolith in order to build our habitat, which are protected, which will provide protection for Martian settlers from this deadly radiation, because there is no escape from this. It is washing you down all the time, 24/7, whether day or night. The radiation will keep hitting you, so you cannot even survive for even few hours on the surface of Mars. Therefore, you need to have some sort of a protection, and the best protection is either you build a dome structure, as you can see in this picture, or you actually go underground. I think the best bet is you actually build a dome structure where you put your machinery, etc., and working quarters, and the living quarter can be underground where you are totally protected. So I think that is the strategy humans will have to follow when they land on the surface of Mars. And this is as per the planning, because I think a lot of planning is going on right now. There is the moon mission which is being planned. How do we convert the frozen water into liquid water, purify it, use it for drinking purpose, recycle it, then use it as a fuel, extract water into hydrogen and oxygen. Oxygen we can use for our breathing purpose, hydrogen as a fuel, etc. So a lot of these things are being planned, and this is also one of the biggest planning part of the biggest thing that we need to think of. even before we blast off something towards Mars, because even if we send our machinery, it should be shielded from the radiation, because even the electronics will fry under this radiation. So it's not only life but also our electronics, which needs protection. So I think the scientists are now looking at various mechanisms, what we can do, what is the cheapest way we can actually build the habitat, what material to use, etc. And therefore I wanted to talk about this in this live series, where scientists have found that carrying stuff from Earth will not be viable, and therefore to build a habitat, the 3D printing technology is going to be used using the Martian Regolith. So friends, I've come to the end of my live stream. If you have any questions, any suggestions, feel free to share your suggestions, questions with me, and join me live again tomorrow, where I'll actually talk about something more intriguing, interesting related to space-time. Have a nice day. Bye-bye for today.